Hello, everybody. Hi there. It's Gemma Smith here from the Education Hotel, one of the experts here. Apologies, I'm a little bit late. I've just overrun on an assessment with one of my students, a student who's looking to take 11 plus in a couple of years. But hopefully I've got people who are live, who are watching, and if you can just give me a quick note in the comments. You can just say hi, give us a like, give us a love, let me know that you are here, because otherwise I don't know who I'm talking to. If you're watching this on replay, then do again give us a hello, give us a hashtag replay so that your comments can be read. It alerts all of the experts here in the group that you are indeed watching us, and that if you do have any questions, we're notified. So do just give us that thumbs up or comment and just let us know. What I'm going to do, you'll just see my eyes flick over. I just need to check that indeed I am live, and just ask a couple of people. So I think, oh yes, there we are. We've got a couple of people who are giving us a like. Thank you very much for letting me know that I am here. Hello, hello, hello. Brilliant. Okay, that allows us to start, allows me to know that there are people here. All right, so I'm doing this session today, and actually the weather is pretty good outside, so I do not blame you if you are watching this on replay, and it is actually summer that we're talking about. So if you are out there enjoying the sun, then as I said, give us a hashtag replay. I know that there'll be a lot of people who'll be watching this a little bit later on, once the sun's gone down. One of the things that we are often asked on this group is about how we can help students to get through summer. And summer for 11 plus is really tricky because it's not everyone in a school that takes 11 plus. Often you're not doing the 11 plus with your siblings or your cousins, and we've just had lockdown. We've just had that point where everybody's been stuck inside, and you know what? Summer is the time for getting out there, getting in the garden, and your child might need to be practicing 11 plus. So I thought it'd be really great today just to jump on and to offer some tips to the group. And I will start this by saying this is my opinion. I've been doing this for probably about 9 years now, but it is still an opinion, and I know that there are people who differ with this opinion. In fact, amongst tutors, what to do over summer is one of the harder discussions. I've seen recently questions like, how do I explain to my child that summer isn't going to be the same this year? And for me, it's something that now, at this point where they're starting to end school, where they're in the last couple of weeks, you really want to get the buy-in. You really want to be able to say to them and to explain to them that this is the push. I liken 11 plus to being a bit like a marathon with hurdles at the end. And I say to my students, I sit them down with their parents, I say, look, we've been pushing, we have been training for this, and we've got to keep that training during summer. And I work specifically with teens. I'm a guardian for teens in top independent schools. I help students to make it to top independent schools and top state schools. And usually around this time, we are sitting and we are talking about summer and about what we are going to do. So hopefully I've got anybody who's going to be listening to us right now. So again, just about me, I'm an education expert. I'm here on the group to help students who are applying to the most selective schools. So whether that's independent, whether that is grammar. I run something called the Education Hotel. It's a tuition agency, and Top School and Uni, which is an education consultancy. I myself took the 11 plus for Chelmsford County High, and mostly I work with tweens and teens. So what do we do if your child is in year 5? I start every one of these talks the same way, really. Mental health is most important. And with that, we've got to be really aware. Year 5 is the time that your child is starting to become independent. They are looking up to you. They are starting to learn about how to handle stress, how to handle a healthy mind and a healthy body. And this summer is going to show them the first point of stress, because they are preparing for this exam. For many of them, they've been preparing for this for a few years. And if you are a parent who's decided to do this kind of last minute, maybe just a couple of months ago, then they're on this accelerated path. So one of the big things is really, really looking after mental health. And that means for many of my parents, and for my advice, it means scheduling in days off. And that being non-negotiable. If your child does not get the scores that you are hoping that they're going to get, don't take it away. Please don't, because that's where they learn that the way to deal with stress is just to keep working. And I know that that's not really what we want to be showing. So one of my first tips is these non-negotiable days off. And even better if they know, your child knows exactly what's happening. So when it comes to summer, I recommend that there's a big timetable on the fridge, or that there is something that allows them to a planner, and maybe a little bit more on that, a little bit of a teaser on that in a moment, but so that they're aware of what's coming up. The other thing is communication. I really like getting into the habit of communicating with your child about what's been hard this week, what's been a great success this week, and starting at this point in summer to get them to really think about what it's going to be like going into this exam. So use this time that you're going to start to have to look at how to deal with these stresses. So the first is to be really open, and to be really in advance know exactly what you're doing, but also to help them to visualize what might be coming up. So one of the things that we do over summer is often we do a visualization. So I will talk a child and their parents often through the day. You know, how's it going to look in terms of 11 plus? What's the exam going to look like? What's going to happen if you don't get the score that you want to get? And all of that to be done in a positive way. So we imagine going into the exam, we imagine doing the exam, we imagine putting our pens down, we imagine walking out, and we imagine feeling amazing that it is over. And we also work on how far students have come. So look back at some of the topics that you really struggled with at the start, your child really struggled with, and show them how well they have done, how far they have come. So that's my kind of overarching before I get into the nitty gritty. Please do make sure you have the time to discuss, to have conversations with your child, to discuss how they look after their health, to discuss what you do when you're stressed, to discuss so that they can start to, as they become independent and they start to move on to secondary, regardless of where that secondary is, they have really positive mental health habits. So those are my kind of prequels. Now we're looking into planning the summer, right? And very shortly, and I kind of say this with a bit of hesitation, because I've been told by my team to not really say that much, but very shortly, that there will be something coming to hopefully help those who are in year 4 a little bit more with planning, but for those of you that are in year 5, planning forward. And planning forward for me is really useful. I know there's sometimes a question of whether you do it ad hoc, whether you write everything down. I'm a big proponent of being upfront and honest with your child. For me, having, and I say this whenever anyone starts with the Education Hotel, having a three-way relationship between tutor, parent and child is the best way to tackle the 11 plus. And if you're doing it just yourself and your child, again, that relationship, that idea that your child can come to you and say, I've really struggled with this, and that they know that you are a team and that you are going to work it out together, that's something that really helps. So when planning the summer, include your child in it. Now, what this doesn't mean is an argument over when you're going to work and when you're not going to work, because ultimately there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done. But what it does mean is them having some choice. So that might be a choice of what afternoons they get off. That might be a choice of if they're going to do a summer club or a summer sport activity, what that might be. It might be a choice of they've got a choice to spend a Saturday with their cousins, or they've got a choice to have two afternoons off a week, and they choose what happens. So make sure that there is some planning that they feel responsible for, because you are more likely to get buy-in. So you're more likely to get somebody who is engaged, and less likely to end up with a lot of argument later on. And summer can be really intense for 11 plus. It can often mean doing quite a lot of practice. It can often mean there's something called the summer slide. So you can have a child who's performing really well, who's kind of mid-80s, who goes into summer and who will hit a dip. And many students do. They hit a dip just before the 11 plus or a plateau, and you have to really work to get them back up and to get them scoring, sometimes even just what they were scoring at the start of summer. And that is occasionally because they are tired, and that could be because there's been too much work and that they are too tired. But it also can be because of boredom. And we all know doing 11 plus practice is not sometimes the most interesting. And it also can be because other people are doing more interesting things. So with this planning, do make sure that when you're planning for the summer, you involve your child, and your child is aware of what's coming up. It's there, everyone can see it. But they're also aware of when they get to have time off, when they get to have fun, and what that might look like. So if you're planning, do it together, do it as a team, and really start seeing yourselves as a team. And I go through this kind of visualization, as I said, with my students, where I explain to them that it's a bit like sport, in that you are training and your tutor or your parent or both are a coach, and we're helping you to be the best on that day. And that's what we're there for. You are there to help your child along, and that means communicating. It means planning. It means making them aware of your expectations, but that you're aware of what they're hoping to get out of summer as well. So two-way planning. Papers and mocks. Lots and lots of questions we've had over papers and mocks over the last couple of weeks. And I'm afraid I do not have one answer, because it really depends on where your child is at individually. So if you are a parent who really started in year 3, year 4, you've been working through, you've been building up, and you're thinking, okay, I've got the summer coming up, it's 6 weeks, what do I do? Then you might be thinking, okay, my child's scoring maybe 80, possibly 85%. Again, I deal with super selective schools, so most of my students are at that kind of point. Then we might look at doing kind of a paper practice a week and really timing it and looking at feedback and really working during the week on what's been identified. you might be, having done that prep, sitting at around a 70 and think, oh no, I'm really needing to kind of get up to the mid 80s. Maybe more papers might not be the way forward, but shorter, looking at shorter bursts. So splitting the paper in half, doing it, picking out those areas, working on those areas, and doing those individual things to be able. So, for example, if your child is struggling with timing, then really working on how they speed up their math, for example. That might be something that is a summer target, and really make your child aware. Okay, this is something that we're targeting this summer. This week we're going to target speeding up, and this is the goal that we hope to get to. Typically, for the majority of my students, when they hit summer, they'll take probably a paper a week in each topic. So that'll be math, English, verbal, non-verbal, dependent on which ones you're doing. And they will do one of those a week, and then we will, over the week, look at the areas that need to be built, and then we'll do another one. And what we do is actually we start at some easier papers and we get harder and harder as we go along. And some of those papers might be independent. Some of them will be practice papers, and we will work up. So that's typically how I do it. Again, it's my way that I prepare. It's not the way. I know many parents will do more than that. Many parents will split papers, and some parents won't do practice or won't do papers in their entirety until a couple of weeks before. It's really dependent on your child. If your child is somebody who really panics at papers, I'd start them early, because the only way they're going to get over that panic is by doing it, and doing it maybe shorten it, take the last 2 pages off, celebrate the fact that they've finished it, reduce the anxiety around it, then start adding in. Think of it as though none of the papers you're doing at this point matter score-wise, but what they do matter for is getting your child to the point that they can walk into that 11 plus confident, and they can walk in knowing every single piece of technique that they can, and it doesn't matter what they got before. So do use those papers as a way to improve. Don't just do the paper, look at the score, bin the paper, because there's no real help for a child that way. Although many students really like to know what score they got, it doesn't help unless you are looking at how to improve. So really I'd sit down with a child, and I'd sit down and I'd go through how they've done it, have a look at their working. Did they finish it in time? Did they miss out questions? Why did they miss out these questions? Was it because they found it tricky, too long? And use those to help. Now, mocks are very different. And we've got in-person mocks, we've got online mocks. As I said, I've literally just finished doing an assessment. Our assessments are a little bit different to mocks, but mock exams can be very useful. They can be really useful for a child who is worried about the practicalities, and indeed a parent who is worried about the practicalities of 11 plus, because an in-person mock allows you to go, it allows you to sit the exam in a place with other students, allows you to have to pack your pencil case before you go and run through those motions. And that can be very helpful for a child who's worried about the physicality of taking it. They can be useful in terms of giving a feedback that you might not see at home. And again, drawing from kind of personal experience, I often do assessments, and they're one-to-one, so that they're not really the same as a mock exam, but a parent will often say, well, you could do that with me. But the moment you put a child under a stressful environment, maybe they're taking it with other people, you can hear everyone else going through the exam, and it sounds like everyone's doing it much quicker than you, and it sounds like maybe everyone else knows what they're doing. That can really test a student. So being able to do it alongside others, you might find that there are areas where they were a little bit wobbly. So for example, maybe they're not so great at time questions, but usually when they sit with you, the timetable style questions are fine. But actually, you put them under the pressure of exam, and that's what comes up. So those mocks can be really useful for that reason, to put that pressure on, to get them used to the idea of what it would be like. Where I would put a little warning would be just mock after mock after mock, and not necessarily with any goal in mind. Again, it's kind of a theme that runs through summer, is being really purposeful about why you are doing something. So if you're going to a mock, you and your child know why it's happening. It's not just to see where you are, or to see what the score is. It's in order to target these areas, or it is to get you used to the idea of doing that mock. If there is a goal in mind, then mocks can be really useful. Often around this time, I tell the story of a student who I had a couple of years ago, who did, I think in the end, 8 mocks. Every single one of them, he started off not very confident, and he ended up not very confident, and it was something that wasn't particularly my advice, but parents really wanted him to go through that process, to see how his scores were doing. And unfortunately, because there wasn't any kind of reason behind it, what it ended up doing was, instead of building confidence, it ended up dampening confidence. So do make sure that your child is aware of why they're doing this. It's not just, I'm doing another mock, oh it's another one, oh it's another one, because when it gets to the real thing, it will just be like another mock. So do make sure that they know the reason behind. And the other thing is, obviously, different mocks give back different data. So certain ones might just give you a score. They might give you a score compared to other students who did it on the day. They might give you the worked questions. They might give you the questions that your child got wrong. Do take a look, because they're quite different. They can be quite different dependent on who is running them. I suppose for just as a kind of for me, the most important thing for me would be to see the questions that my child got wrong, because then I can tell kind of what we need to work on. But for other parents, I know that that knowing the ranking, or that knowing all of the questions to see whether they use the right method, can also be really useful. So hopefully that helps with papers and mocks. As I said, typically for me it's one a week, but there are people who do many more. As long as you are using them and you are going back over them, then that is the kind of most important thing. As you start to get to the end of summer, do consider bringing all of the questions that your child has struggled with on all of their past papers through the summer, and bringing them into one paper, or 2, or several, maybe mixing them in with a couple of other questions. And the reason to do that is twofold. The first is to see whether they now are able to do those questions. Hopefully they are. You've worked on them over summer. The second is to show them. So I would always be keeping all of those papers. And then once I've made that amalgamated paper, they've sat it, maybe they get 70%. You show them, okay, you know what? I wouldn't tell them before, but I would tell them afterwards. Those questions were all the questions that you've got wrong. And look how well you've done. Because it's a real confidence boost to see that you have not been able to answer them at the start of summer, and suddenly here you are, you're scoring 70% or you're scoring 65%. So as it gets to the end of summer, really focusing on confidence. You want your child to be walking into the 11 plus, not feeling like it's another mock, not feeling like they can't do it, and feeling really, really confident about themselves. So that would be how I'd be using mocks. That would be how I'd be trying to get the most out of them, both in feedback, but also in confidence. Summer courses. Obviously, I can't come on here without talking about summer courses. The Education Hotel is running them, so it would be a bit weird to miss them out. Again, for us, summer courses is something that we have decided to do this year, and the reasons behind it are, again, it's about targeting those specific areas, as opposed to choosing to do something that runs through everything or that includes both year 4 and year 5. We've chosen to do something that is very specific to year 5 and very specific to the trickiest topics that we can identify and that parents can identify. But generally, if you're looking at summer courses, consider what your child will get out of it. So are you sending them there for an overall recap? And you think, actually, there's some things that they haven't done since year 4, and I'd really like them to go through. In which case, then maybe a longer, more spread out course that covers everything might be the way forward. If you're wanting to tackle specific subjects or specific topics that have been identified as tricky, then there may be a shorter, more intensive course. Consider if there is a specific area, you know, if you want to do just math and you think maybe that's the area that they might need, and do balance it up against that spare time. Because if you're going to be doing 5 weeks worth of summer courses, and that means they're going to be working 2-3 hours every single day in the week, and then you're doing mock exams or past papers, when are they going to have that time to relax, that time to feel like there is summer? Or are they going to reach the end of August and they're going to be tired and might not be in ideal condition to go in? So when choosing a summer course, that there are lots of things that you might want to consider. You might want to see, well, is it important for you to have them in person? Is it important that actually it's online, you'd have to do any drop off, you can go on, do what you want afterwards? Or do you want them to be in a classroom with other children and interacting with them? Do you want that summer course to build their confidence, or do you want that summer course to be long or short, but make sure there is a goal in mind? And again, just like I said at the start, that it's communicated with your child, that it's planned in advance, that you've got that up on the fridge or on the wall, just telling you about what, you know, why you're doing it. And one of the nicest things that I like to do right at the start of summer, I say to parents, is kind of imagine that you're a team, and if you're with a tutor, then the tutor's part of the team too, and come up with a motto, a chant, a thing that's going to bind you guys together, and really aim for it. So just like when you're on summer camp or when you are on a sports team, you've got your own sayings, you've got your own preparations. And that's something that you want to start doing as you're going through these mocks and the papers, is really building that in, so that when it gets to the day of those exams, you can say, or days, if you're taking multiple, you can have them prepared. They know their motto, they know that they can do it, they've been through it, they've tried it, they've been to these summer courses, they know that they've done the best, and you know that they've done the best preparation that they can. So that's why I'd always be pro plan, and I'm also pro courses or pro mocks, as long as there's an aim, there's a reason. This is probably the hardest, how to maintain motivation, because imagine that you had a month's worth of holiday booked from work, and you did it every single year. Every single year, you got a month's worth of holiday. And then somebody came to you and said, actually, no, not this year. No, this year, you're going to sit in the office and you're going to work, and you can look out the window and you can see all of the other adults, and they're all going off on vacation. They're doing it every year, but you aren't. And the reason for that is that you then have to take a test. Doesn't seem particularly fair, because your child, although they really may want to go to this specific school, it's a hard thing to do, to maintain that motivation for a whole summer when you can see other people who maybe aren't aiming for that same school, people who maybe aren't the same age as you, but they're out there having fun and you're stuck inside working. One of the big things on maintaining motivation: teamwork, as I've mentioned before, and being aware of what you need to do. So that's why I'd always sit down and have that conversation. That's why I'm coming on live now, before we reach the end of school time, and before we reach summer, so that as a parent you've had a time to listen to this, and you are aware of kind of what you might want to do when you sit down with your child and discuss summer. The other is knowing that you've got those times off and they're protected. It doesn't matter what happens in the week. It doesn't matter if you can't remember all the spellings or whatever. You are going to have that time off, because that is one of the ways to maintain motivation. The other way is, and again, maybe a controversial, it's not controversial, it's the way that I suppose I present. I say to my students, look, yeah, you've got to work over summer. Yeah, so is everybody else who's doing the 11 plus. And yes, it's going to be tough. And I have that conversation with them right at the start. And I get that buy-in from them. I talk a lot about buy-in. And what I mean is, when a child or a student of mine will agree with me and will do what I'm asking, and yeah, there'll be pushback, but they know the reason that they're doing it. So if you haven't taught schools and you get the chance to do so, do it. If you haven't taught and you don't get the chance to do so, then make sure that that they've watched the open days, that they've watched the talks, that they want to attend the school that you've chosen. And that might be one reason. It might be because the art classrooms are particularly good, or because they play cricket and your child wants to play cricket. But make sure that they've got a motivation, and then print out that motivation picture, stick it up inside their workspace. And every time, because there will be times during summer that they don't want to do the work, that they just want to go outside, or that they just want to do something, and there might be tears, remind them of the reason that they're doing it. That reason has to be intrinsic to them. So if your child has been pushing back against doing the 11 plus, maybe they don't want to go to the school, they want to go with their friends to a different school, or they're not too worried, I would find something that they want to do. So do they want to go there because there is something good, or because they've seen the open day, or because the school's got a swimming pool? It's the reason that I wanted to go to Chancellor Grammar, was I went round and there was a swimming pool. It was that thing that swung it for me. If not, I would find some other motivation. So whether that is that taking the exam means that upon taking the exam that they get to go out to their favourite restaurant, that they get a new Xbox game, whatever it is, now would be the time that I'd start talking about that. And I'd really start talking about motivation, because that motivation can be a useful way to get you guys back on track. And again, you're a team, so you are both working for the same thing. Don't ever hold it over them. So if you don't try, you won't get this, because you guys need to be on the same team. So whenever I discuss this with parents, and there are parents who will, who will promise their child something at the end of it, I would always say that it's for doing the exam. It's not for scoring. It is there we are. But be aware that that you are on the same team. Okay. Oh, I think I am back. There we go. All right. Where should I be now? What have I started preparation late? Ultimately, end of summer year 5, you should have finished, for me, all of the syllabus. Ideally, you have done some practice questions, that you have looked through exam technique, that there is nothing new. That would be, for me, ideal. And if you started preparation late, working towards that. I take students on at this point who have not considered 11 plus. It's possible, it's intense, it's not ideal, but it is possible. So occasionally there are people who say, you know what, we've moved to a different area, we actually now think we want to do it. You've got 6 weeks and you need to cover the advanced stuff, so the stuff that would have been done at the end of year 5, start of year 6. But ideally, if you are at the point where you have covered the whole syllabus, and that syllabus can be, it's often available from tutors. If you've covered all of it, you've done a load of 10-minute tests, you might have done some practice tests, started on those practice tests, that your child is aware of where their pitfalls lie. So are they going too fast? Are they going too slow? Do they struggle when it gets to pie chart questions? So they know, or you know, where those areas are. And you know where you need to focus. That would be over the next couple of weeks whilst your child's still in school, what I would be sitting down and working out. So to do that, I'd go through any books that they've been doing, any online prep that they've been doing, ask their tutors, where do they need to focus? So is there anything that's syllabus related that needs to be covered? And there might be stuff that's really old, so like fractions, that they've forgotten. It might be that actually over the last 2 weeks they've been really tired with everything that's been going on at school, and a lot of schools are moving towards the fun part, and actually they're just exhausted, and their scores have started to drop. So you know that summer needs to be that point where you start pushing again. It might be that they're doing really, really well, but they're struggling with inferencing comprehension. So pinpoint those areas so that when you and your child sit down, you say, these are the areas that we're struggling on. These are the things that we're thinking of doing. And then you give them some options. It doesn't have to be options on what they focus on. It can be options on when they work. It could be options on when they take their lunch. It could be options on what they do in the afternoons. Do they want to work mornings or afternoons? So again, a little bit of flexibility, but ultimately as a parent, or a parent and a tutor team, make sure you know where you're aiming and make sure that you've got that focus. So where should you be now? For me, you should have finished the syllabus, but if you haven't, you should be aware of what you need to be doing. I can see that some people have asked, so how many hours per day do we allocate on study days? Ultimately, that is dependent on how much you need to be doing. So if you have covered everything and actually you're looking at practice, then 1 to 2 hours is typically what I'll look at. If I'm looking at an intensive student, someone who's decided to take it now, I'm running 5 to 6 hour days. So there's a big spectrum. The other thing is whether you're going to take a day off in the middle, or are you going to do something in the afternoon, or are you working weekends or not working weekends? So typically the way that I'd run it, Kind of 2 hours is average, I suppose, for me. And that's because if a student for me is taking 4 different things, then we do 30 minutes on each. So we do 30 minutes math, 30 minutes English, 30 minutes non, 30 minutes verbal. And we set those times up. And I might not do it all in one block. I might spread it out. I might say, okay, I notice after the first week that that maybe verbal reasoning needs a little bit more, and actually my child's really struggling with vocab. Then what I might do is sit down and work out a way to get vocab elsewhere in the day. So whether that's through a game, whether that's through playing board games, whether that's through a car journey, and I'd look at it that way. Alternatively, some people prepare 3 hours. I like 3 hours because it goes from 9 till 12. If we're not doing breaks, but kind of maybe a bit more intensive, or indeed 9 till 1, and then you take breaks. And that third hour is exam technique. So you're practicing a lot of what you've recapped on. But it really depends on how much your child has done, where they're aiming for, and what they're scoring. So if you're aiming for QE Barnet and your child is scoring mid-60s, you've got a way to go. If you are not aiming for a particularly selective school and your child is scoring straight 80s and they've got a tendency to maybe be bored or be burnt out, then that's where you need to pull back. So highly school dependent, highly child dependent, unfortunately. But do prepare to be flexible. I know I talk a lot about planning, but one of the things that that I would say is plan to sit down with your child, maybe on a Friday, have that what's gone well, maybe tea and cake, always a good one, because you get something nice out of it, and discuss what you think needs to happen, what they think needs to happen, or indeed what the tutor thinks needs to happen. And that means that then you can be flexible week on week. So if you've noticed something, you might say, okay, well, I'd like us to focus a lot more on English. You know, I really feel, and I'd always put it positively, instead of you're scoring low, it would be, I really feel like you can do better. I know that you can. Look at this piece that you've done for me 2 months ago. That was amazing. Let's see if we can get there. We can get there. Instead of just them, we've got to work together. And I know we can do it. And that's why we're going to be doing some more English this week. And make sure that there's a goal so that you've got that, again, relationship that you know both of you where you're going. Okay. I appreciate that there might be some of you who are watching this either live or indeed on catch up, who are in summer year 4, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is great, but I don't know what I'm doing with my child. My child's in year 4. What do I need to be doing? For me at year 4, it's about planning, and knowing exactly what you're going to be doing going into year 5. And again, it's quite hard to run one of these talks because every person's circumstance is different. So you might know, you're in summer at year 4, that you plan to have a holiday in year 5. And year 5 is this counts for you too. If you're planning to have a holiday, you're going to have to increase the amount of work either side. I am a preferer. My 11 plus tutor told me, don't do holidays in August because you take your eye off the ball. Again, it's a bit like training. You need to then kind of get back to it. But you might always have a holiday then. So you might know, actually, there's something that's unavoidable. Maybe you go and see your family back home. Then you need to plan around it. If you're in year 4 and you know that your child is looking to play higher level sport next year, you know that what you need to be planning around. So if you're in year 4, summer is an ideal time for you to review your child's commitments and start to see where is it that that you need to move stuff around, and again, look at how much of the syllabus they have covered. So again, at a year 4, I would hope that they are typically around 3/4, maybe slightly more, through the syllabus. It puts very little pressure then on year 5. Year 5, there's only around a quarter to do, or even just 20%. It can be a bit nicer. You can start to look at exam technique. So if you're sitting here, you're looking at this this talk, and you're thinking, okay, I'm year 4, but maybe only my child has only just decided to do the 11 plus. I would then maybe start using the summer and do occasional days, 2, maybe 3 days a week, working at increasing that syllabus so that you can go into year 5, you can go in ahead. I like my students to have finished everything by Christmas in year 5, and that gives them a lot of time for exam technique, because typically timing is where a lot of students fall down. I know that I finish earlier than most. Most people won't finish until Easter. And typically what we do is we finish at Christmas, and then we go back over anything that we've identified needs looking at until Easter. So do have a think about planning ahead, about what your child might need to be doing, both inside school and outside of school. So is there anything that's taking a lot of time that they need to be aware of? Are there any sports? And start to do that planning. Same thing for year 5. If you're in a year 5 and you, again, you're looking forward until summer, and you're thinking, you know what, I've got other children, and we always go on holiday, and there's green list countries, and maybe you're thinking of going, again, that is where having a clear plan will help your child. So if you are going on a week's worth of holiday and you're not thinking of bringing the books with you, you think you're leaving them at home, and that week is going to be off, then make sure your child is aware of what needs to happen around it. So again, not holding it over their heads, so not saying to them that they won't be able to do things if they don't get it done, but making them aware that they need to, again, like preparing for a race, you've got to be able to get back into it. And typically it takes quite a while, so a week, 2 weeks, to get back into the swing of doing that 11 plus prep. So and that's why you need to be able to come back and get back into the swing of that, and your child needs to be aware. So that's that planning part, that communication part, being able to say to them, actually, we're taking holiday, so instead of taking the 3 hours a day that we're going to do, when we get back, it's going to be 3 very intensive hours a day, and we're going to do it every single day. And we're going to do that just because we're going on holiday. We're going on holiday, so we've got a month when we get back. What we're going to do is we're going to work for 4 or 5 days a week, and we're going to do that until we both feel like we're confident. Okay, so always, again, as a team. Balance. If you're in year 4, you probably just sat through all of the year 5 stuff that I've been saying about how important it is to keep a child on track and make sure that they don't peak too early, because that does happen, that they don't burn out. So summer year 4, make sure that balance is right. I wouldn't be doing intensive work at all. I would be focusing on making sure that those foundations are nice and strong, make sure that they have covered what they need to, especially this year, and really balance. So again, it's early. It's early for these guys. They don't need to be doing all of this preparation, as far as I'm concerned anyway. They do need to be doing regular work, because we all know that if you don't practice math, it doesn't work. You forget things. But likewise, you don't need to be sitting down and doing mock tests and putting them through that kind of pressure, unless of course your child needs it. And there'll be very few, but there might be a few children who really want to push themselves, who would like to see what it's like. And occasionally I do have those students who do that, maybe a little bit earlier. But ultimately you're kind of putting them under that stress for not necessarily any particular purpose. So again, balance. If they really want to do something academic, get them doing math challenge, get them writing poetry, get them writing creative stories and writing their own stories and creating their own book, get them vlogging, get them doing something that is going to build their skills, that's something that's going to help them with 11 plus, but ultimately something that isn't taking exams, because they've got enough time to do that in year 5. All right. So I'm coming to the end of what I have to say regarding summer. I know that over the next few weeks, there will be lots of us admins and experts coming on and doing our own little videos to help out over summer. So do watch out for those. We'll start to be releasing those. And again, just to reiterate, if there are any questions that you guys have got, pop them on the private and grammar school info group. The experts are always there to help. We're here to answer questions as much as we can, and hopefully you've found this useful. Again, if you're watching it on replay, #replay for me so that I can see what you've done. And if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. I'm always watching the comments for any of the videos that I've done, so that I can come and answer them. But I think this is it, and I think I am finished. So thank you ever so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone at Private and Grammar School Info who have been watching the comments for us, and that's me. Thank you very much. Bye bye.